Hi everybody, I'm First Alert Chief Meteorologist Stephen Bowers. We've got a close eye on the Gulf of Mexico on this Tuesday evening as Hurricane Idalia makes its track toward the north and gathers intensity. As of 6 p.m. Mountain Time, the winds are up to 105 miles per hour. That's a strengthening Category 2 hurricane, and just for reference, 111 miles per hour would make this a Category 3 hurricane. So it's very close to that, and we expect that it will become a Category 3 hurricane tonight or early tomorrow morning. Well, let's talk about the forecast. And I want to zoom out, take a look at the big picture here, and over this, I'm going to overlay the wind at about 30 to 35,000 feet above sea level here. And the reason I'm showing you this is so that you can kind of see that there's a big upper level low pressure trough that's carved out through the central part of the country, and it dips down to the northwestern Gulf of Mexico. So we can already see the flow that's likely to direct this more toward the north and northeast as it approaches the coast in the early morning hours of Wednesday. Now, I want to show you the latest forecast tracks. Some people call these the spaghetti models. These are forecast tracks from some of the computer models that we look at. And what I want to point out about this is the official forecast actually brings this inland over the right side of our model envelope here, we'll call it. The latest model updates, though, show a gradual shift more toward the east. And so it may be that when we get the forecast update from the National Hurricane Center at about 9 o'clock, there is a shift to the east that puts this a little closer to, say, St. Mark's or St. George Island or perhaps Alligator Point. That brings it more toward the south or maybe southeast here of the immediate Tallahassee area, which, of course, is the Florida state capital city. Then this tracks inland through Wednesday evening over South Georgia and into South Carolina before it tracks back out over the Atlantic Ocean, probably on Thursday morning, and then continues out to sea, and it's out of here. Again, it is an intensifying hurricane, and we expect that by about midnight Mountain Time tonight, this will be a Category 3 hurricane with winds of around 115 miles per hour. This is the official forecast track from the National Hurricane Center, by the way, that's overlaid with our Futurecast. Now, our Futurecast is up the right side of that cone of uncertainty, but again, a lot of the latest computer model runs have updated and show maybe a track more to the west that favors kind of the western side of this cone of uncertainty. So there may be a slight shift, at least in the center track of this, that puts this a little closer maybe toward areas like Alligator Point, St. Mark's, Carabel, those areas that are a little bit closer to the Tallahassee area. But this is likely to make landfall probably between about 5 and 7, maybe 8 a.m. Eastern time. This is about 5 o'clock our time here in the Mountain time zone. This is going to continue inland, and it's going to weaken, likely stepping down to a Category 1 hurricane with 85 mile per hour winds by lunchtime Wednesday, again, Mountain Time. But you see, even as it's weakening, there is a lot of heavy rain that's going to be spreading inland, and that means both the flash flood threat, the inland river flooding threat, and also the tornado threat will follow that. And then it will continue off toward the east, gradually turning more toward the east from northeast, really, by the time we get to, say, Thursday morning, Wednesday night, Thursday morning at midnight, and you see it weakens to a tropical storm by about that time. And then by the time we're waking up Thursday morning, this is moving out into the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of North Carolina and continuing to weaken as it does so. For the time being, we still have hurricane warnings that start just to the south here of the Tampa Bay area, and these fill in all the way up through Cedar Key, through Alligator Point, St. Mark's, even down towards Sopchoppy, Carabel, East Point, Apalachicola. And this stops at Indian Point, where we have a tropical storm warning that takes effect over around Port St. Joe. Tropical storm warnings also are in effect down the coast, south of the Tampa Bay area, through Chokoloskee, which is the northernmost extent there, really, of the Everglades. It does include Everglades City, Naples, Fort Myers, and areas up closer to Sarasota as well. That, again, is a tropical storm warning. Also worth pointing out, tropical storm warnings are now in effect up the east coast of Florida. That starts, looks like just north of Fort Pierce, I should say, probably pretty close to Sebastian Inlet, and then up from Melbourne through the Space Cape to Daytona Beach. St. Augustine, Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston, all are included in that tropical storm warning, which now runs up the southern portion of the North Carolina coast. That includes the areas around Wilmington as well. Also, it's worth to mention the tropical storm watch is in effect for the Florida Keys, but that tropical storm warning does include still the Dry Tortugas just to the west there of the westernmost Florida Keys. This is probably the big deal, the storm surge, and it's going to top perhaps 10 to 15 feet for the Big Bend of Florida down through about Cedar Key or so. So that's, again, where the most dangerous storm surge is. There are people in this area, but this is a relatively sparsely populated area. But those who are in this area are going to be impacted in a big way. Even just to the west of this center, and again, this may be shifting as the new forecast comes out a little bit later on tonight, but there still is a significant storm surge that extends all the way over through about Apalachicola and East Point, and a 1 to 3 foot storm surge just south of St. Andrews Bay, Panama City, and also closer to the, say, Port St. Joan Indian Point areas. Then we shift down the coast, and there again is a significant storm surge that includes areas down toward Tarpon Springs and just north of Tampa Bay. And then the Tampa Bay area itself is looking at about a 4 to 6 foot storm surge, and that includes areas around St. Petersburg, the city of Tampa, and even Clearwater. And of course, the storm surge gets a little smaller the farther south we go. We're looking at about 2 to 4 feet around Naples and Fort Myers, and then 1 to 3 feet as you get south toward Everglades City, Chokoloskee, and the Florida Everglades themselves. The rainfall also is going to be a big deal with this. We're looking at rainfall amounts that could top a foot. Look at Perry going over 12 inches there. And in these brighter orange, almost yellow areas that we see kind of scattered in the map here, those are areas where at least a foot of rain could fall. And you see that that extends inland over parts of Georgia and right up through interior portions of South Carolina and North Carolina. So with more than a foot of rain, the river flood threat and the flash flood threat is significant all the way up through the Carolinas and into southern Georgia as well. So this is a big impact type situation. I should also mention that there's also a threat, a significant threat for tornadoes anytime there's a landfalling hurricane, and that's going to be especially big near and just to the right of the eye of the hurricane, and even well inland as that center of circulation tracks inland over Georgia and the Carolinas, that tornado threat will follow. And I also should mention the incredible rip current threat that really encompasses from areas from Florida all the way to Texas, even areas well away from the path of this hurricane, well away from the impact of this hurricane, are going to be faced with that rip current threat. So the Gulf of Mexico should be considered closed for business. It is too dangerous for swimming, even over around, say, Pensacola, Dauphin Island, Mobile, over toward the Mississippi coast. New Orleans is in the mix there, all the way over toward, as I mentioned, Galveston and South Padre Island along the Texas Gulf Coast. So a dangerous night developing here in the Gulf of Mexico. The most dangerous of this is going to be in the direct impact zone, which really includes the areas of the Florida Big Bend, mainly through Appalachia Bay and areas just to the north of the Tampa Bay area as well. So watch this tonight, early tomorrow morning. If you have family, friends who are in that area, give them a call, shoot them a text, make sure they're paying attention, because in this day of streaming television, sometimes it can be hard to get people's attention. So that's the update for this Tuesday night. We'll be watching it for you.